Hey, love, I know this is going to be difficult for you to read, and honestly, it's difficult for me to write, but I have come to realize that I can't keep this truth locked away anymore. I owe you an explanation. Not just any explanation, one that lays bare the reality of why I chose someone else and walked away, regardless of how painful it might be for both of us. You deserve honesty because you invested so much of yourself in me, trusted me, and believed in who I was. By withholding the full truth, I robbed you of the chance to truly understand why things ended as they did. I know that acknowledging everything now may bring you back to memories you've tried to leave behind, or it might stir up new pain that you weren't prepared to face. But you deserve the chance to decide what to do with the unfiltered reality of my actions. And I can only hope you'll hear me out in these next moments. When I first left, maybe you formed your own conclusions. Sometimes the mind tries to protect itself by building reasons that soften the blow. Perhaps you told yourself I fell out of love, or that I was merely chasing a fleeting spark. It's possible you created a narrative that let you find some sense of closure or acceptance to make life bearable. I can't blame you for doing that. We all try to shield ourselves from the worst possibilities when heartbreak hits. The reality, though, runs deeper than a simple falling out or a desire for novelty. It goes beyond the usual reasons people cite: arguments, incompatibility, or mundane differences of opinion. I want to share the full truth of my decisions, the kind of truth that might rattle your understanding of who I am and what we once had. And for that, I need to start at the very beginning. I remember the day I met her. It wasn't something I had planned or searched for. It just happened. She came into my life at a moment when I was wrestling with parts of myself I didn't even know were broken. A certain intensity ignited between us almost instantly, so strong that I felt like I was seeing a side of love I'd never experienced before. This wasn't a slow burn or a gradual emotional closeness. It was more like lightning that struck when I was least prepared. I felt captivated, almost spellbound by a connection that I genuinely believed was the realest, most honest form of passion I'd ever tasted. And in that haze, because I see it as a haze when I look back, my sense of loyalty, my sense of reason, and my understanding of the future I'd planned with you vanished behind the allure of something so new, so magnetic, that it blinded me to everything else. One of the hardest parts to explain, or even to understand myself, is how quickly I went from being so content with you to feeling like something was missing. It was as though she represented a question mark about life that I'd never dared to consider. I convinced myself that what I felt with her was a sign that my heart was trying to take me somewhere else, somewhere bigger, deeper, or more thrilling than what I had known before. So I started creating justifications for leaving. In my mind, I told myself that I was discovering a part of me that I had overlooked for too long, and that I needed to explore it to truly find happiness. This wasn't something superficial. It felt seismic, like everything I had previously taken for granted about love, stability, or the safety of our relationship was suddenly a cage. The idea of staying started to feel like I was denying myself a once in a lifetime chance to see what else existed in the realm of love and passion. But the truth is, that sense of novelty and danger was intoxicating. She brought a certain unpredictability, a wildness, that didn't just turn my head, it had me spinning. When I left, it wasn't only about choosing her, it was also about choosing an idea of who I thought I could become. I saw myself reflected back in her eyes as someone daring, spontaneous, and open to experiences I'd never let myself have before. And though it's painful to say, part of me believed that leaving you was necessary for my own evolution, that maybe I had reached a stagnant place and needed this jolt to wake me up. In those moments, I couldn't see how I was sacrificing something irreplaceable: your love, your understanding, your loyalty, for a wave of emotion that, in hindsight, was more fragile than I ever could have predicted. Almost as soon as I left, that wave began to crest. The thrill didn't last forever. At first, I told myself it was just the normal shift from the high of infatuation to the realities of a relationship. But the more time I spent with her, the more I realized the depth I had believed in wasn't actually there, or at least not in the same sense as what we had. It was like watching a beautiful painting fade under direct sunlight. The vibrancy I had marveled at so eagerly began to blur, and instead of finding deeper colors, I found cracks in the canvas. Maybe I should have expected it to change. Love can't always remain in that breathless, heart-racing stage. But I guess I was naive enough to believe that those fireworks would sustain us, that they were a sign of a deeper, transcendent bond. What truly drove the point home, though, was discovering how we handled life's ordinary challenges. When we faced stress, disagreements, or confusion, there wasn't the warmth, empathy, and communication I'd grown so used to with you. It was as though the very spark that had drawn us together became fragile under the weight of everyday life. I remember a day I came home feeling stressed from work, wanting just to unwind and talk. She listened for a moment, but her attention quickly wavered. The conversation didn't feel supportive. It felt transactional, like the connection I had once believed in was only present when things were fun or exciting. I couldn't talk to her the way I could talk to you, and I started realizing the difference in how you offered me genuine concern, acceptance, and unwavering faith. It's a painful realization to look back on and know that I had something beautiful and meaningful, real partnership, and traded it for a fleeting sense of newness. The illusions kept unraveling. Moments that should have brought us closer ended in misunderstandings that felt trivial yet cut deep. I realized that what I had with her was based on the idea of being swept away, a fantasy of sorts, rather than the honest work of building a love that stands the test of time. Instead of feeling comforted, I often felt uneasy, as though the ground beneath our connection might collapse at any moment. The euphoria that initially drew me and gradually turned into a kind of hollow tension. We tried patching up our differences, hoping to recover the spark we had in the beginning, but it never really stuck. Each attempt to reignite that initial magic fell short, and I started seeing that I had anchored so many expectations and hopes on something inherently fragile. Looking back, the regret surged through me. I remember waking up one morning with a sharp awareness of everything I had given up by leaving you. It felt like standing alone in a room that was once filled with laughter and warmth, only now it was silent and cold. I thought of the conversations we'd had, the good times, the silly jokes, the sense of partnership in all our decisions, big and small. I remembered how you always supported me, even in my lowest moments, how you saw me in ways I couldn't see myself. I realized how stable our love had been, how you'd always been consistent and considerate. And in that moment, the weight of my mistake was crushing. I had cast aside something genuine for a promise of something I didn't even fully understand. It dawned on me that what I interpreted as a calling was actually a temporary adrenaline rush, one that couldn't support the foundation of a lasting relationship. I think this realization hurt even more because I had already inflicted so much pain on you. It wasn't just that I chose another person. It was also the betrayal, the secrecy, the shock of feeling unceremoniously tossed aside. I can't imagine how you must have felt when I walked out, how blindsided you must have been. And that knowledge, that I caused you that kind of heartbreak, only multiplied my own regret and sorrow. It was as though I had become two versions of myself, the version who chased something new and the version who looked back in horror at what I had done. Facing that duality was like standing between two mirrors, each reflection condemning me in its own way. I couldn't escape it, no matter how hard I tried. When the cracks in my new relationship finally became impossible to ignore, I was forced to confront another difficult truth. I had attached so much significance to that intensity I felt at the start because I was missing pieces of myself. Instead of addressing those empty spaces in my heart, I used the adrenaline of a new relationship to distract me. I felt alive, but I never examined why I hadn't felt fully alive before. I realized too late that the sense of stagnation I blamed on our relationship was actually inside me. You weren't the problem. The dullness I felt was an internal struggle, but I unfairly associated it with our relationship's stability and comfort. So, in search of excitement, I left the partnership that had consistently been there for me. In telling you all this, I want to make one thing clear. I'm not asking for your sympathy, nor am I trying to justify my actions. There is no excuse for the hurt I caused you, and you have every right to feel anger, betrayal, or even indifference as you read these words. I know that apologies can't erase the anguish I inflicted, nor can they magically restore our relationship to what it once was. But I am telling you this because I believe you deserve honesty, the complete story, rather than the vague explanations or partial truths I offered before. By hearing the real reason I left, maybe you can find a clarity that helps you reconcile the past in whatever way feels right for you. For a long time, I was afraid to confront you with the truth because I feared your judgment. I thought it would be easier to let you believe superficial reasons. I told myself it might hurt you less if you just thought I had fallen out of love. But what I see now is that withholding the full explanation only prevented you from truly moving on. You were left with question marks, forced to fill the blanks yourself. By revealing the real story, I might be removing any comforting illusions you had, but I'm also giving you the tools to decide how you feel about my actions with complete knowledge. And in a way, I hope this honesty can be a step toward closure for both of us. I want you to understand the magnitude of my regret. It weighs on me daily. I carry the memory of you, your kindness, your unwavering presence, your willingness to fight for us until the very end, and I realize I threw it away for a hollow thrill. This knowledge doesn't vanish, not after days, weeks, or months. It's something that has become embedded in me, like a scar that continually reminds me of what I lost. And while this letter may come too late, while it may not mend the emotional wounds I caused, I still feel I need to share this truth. Perhaps if you can see the layers behind my choice, you'll recognize that what happened wasn't about any shortcoming in you, but rather a flaw in my own judgment and emotional readiness. That doesn't erase the pain. I know. There's a high chance you have already built a new life that doesn't include me, a life where you found happiness, or at least are on the path to healing. If so, I'm genuinely glad. You deserve to experience love in a way that is reciprocated and reliable. You deserve someone who appreciates the very qualities I once took for granted. Even if these words never lead to a reconciliation, I hope they serve as an affirmation that you were never lacking. You never had to prove yourself to be worthy. The fault lies with me and my inability to see what I truly had before it was too late. Thank you for reading this far, for letting me break down the carefully constructed walls I'd built around my reasoning. Thank you for hearing the messy truth behind why I chose someone else, for letting me speak about the illusions that led me astray, and for grappling with the disappointment, confusion, or anger that might arise in you. In giving me these few moments, you've allowed me the chance to do what I should have done from the start: offer sincerity instead of ambiguous excuses. I can't ask you to forgive me, but I can express my gratitude for your time and attention in reading this. I hope these words at least serve as a testament to the fact that I acknowledge my mistakes and recognize the magnitude of what I lost. I understand that this might not lighten your load. It might even compound it in the short term. Finding out the depth of someone's betrayal isn't cathartic in a straightforward way. But I believe that if you ever choose to look back on us, knowing the full reality might feel truer than living with incomplete stories. It might give you a more precise target for your anger, or it might bring you the validation that indeed, you weren't the reason things fell apart. Sometimes clarity, even when it's harsh, can be more liberating than a haze of half-truths. And so, I offer you this clarity, however late it has arrived. As I close this letter, I acknowledge the possibility that you might not want to speak to me after reading it. You might choose to move forward, unburdened by any further contact or explanation, and I would respect that. Or perhaps you'll feel compelled to respond, to tell me exactly how you feel now that you know the full story. Whatever you decide, I respect your autonomy in choosing what's best for your heart. After all, I forfeited the privilege of your trust when I made the choice to leave. All I can do now is lay my honesty at your feet and hope it helps you in some way. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for the heartbreak, for the lies, and for not being mature enough to see what I had before I let it go. I'm sorry that my decisions and illusions caused you pain, and I'm sorry that I wasn't strong enough or open enough to tell you the truth a long time ago. You deserved better then, and you still do. While these words might not mean everything, they are the most transparent words I have ever offered you. I chose someone else for a fleeting fantasy, and I live with that regret. Thank you for letting me share this, and I hope in time you find the peace, love, and happiness that should have always been yours. Take care of yourself, and know that wherever life takes you, you carry with you the goodness that I once was too blind to appreciate. You remain someone worth loving deeply, someone who deserves honesty, respect, and the kind of steadfast devotion that I, unfortunately, failed to provide. I will always regret that, but at least now, you know the truth behind it all.